I want to talk about a concept called UBI, which is Universal Basic Income. And this is an important concept for the society because we're about to enter into a phase where artificial intelligence is taking over many aspects of our life. And this conversation really came up when I was hopping on a call with a potential investor when I'm raising capital for my business. So he watched the presentation on my startup, and then afterwards we have a Zoom call. We talked about different things like investing approach, investing philosophy, and then he was asking me whether I have certain world views. And at that point, I was a little bit shocked because I didn't know how to answer him. He asked me if I have any certain philosophy or perspective about the world. And I gave that a lot of thought because when you're looking at an entrepreneur and when you're looking at a founder, you want them to have a certain worldview that is different than a regular person. And that is actually in the book called Zero to One by Peter Thiel, is that you must believe in something that is extraordinary or something that is not what a normal person would believe. And that brings me to UBI and a solution to UBI. So the concept of universal basic income is that the government will provide everybody with a certain level of income such that if you ever get unemployed, if you are in between jobs, you need some income to survive on, it is there. So it's EI, employment income, where if you get laid off, you get paid for a couple of months, but this is a more consistent income you receive that even if you are not unemployed, like you are working, you will still get it. And if you decide to pursue a risky venture like entrepreneurship, you'll get it as well. Or if you try to do art, you will get it as well. So you don't need to be fired to get this income. And that is really the concept of UBI. And it was advocated 4, 5, 6 years ago. They did a bunch of experiments which improved people's lives, and there's a lot of positive feedback on it. So the question is, why is it becoming so important now? A lot of people may not be aware, but AI is becoming very popular. A lot of people are throwing these buzzwords around like ChatGPT, LLM, large language model, DeepSeek, so on and so forth. But unless you're using AI on a regular basis, you actually are not aware of how powerful it is. And from an economist point of view, AI is essentially replacing the labor in the equation. So in a company, you have capital, you have labor costs, you have certain missions that you need to achieve, you have profit and loss, and essentially AI is reducing the labor costs by 10x, like 90%. And some of the examples would be you take a high pay job, let's say programmers, and you make that person 10x more efficient because they're using AI to help them code. And that means the company can move 10x faster, or the company can hire less programmers. So instead of 10 programmers, you only need one because this person is 10x more efficient. Or you can pay the programmer less money because now programmer is not difficult of a task to do and everyone can suddenly code. So the salary of a programmer goes from 100K down to 50K. Okay? So these are the possible scenarios that can happen, which is more supply, lower barrier of entry, and basically increase in productivity, which actually decreases the amount of job position required. Now, the other example I have for you is customer service. And that is when you're calling the bank and someone from India or Philippines is taking the call and trying to help you out and cancel your cell phone plan. So right now, what the Philippine customer service representatives are experiencing is that the entire call centers are getting cut and replaced by AI. There's AI-driven chatbot, there's AI voice, that can actually respond to you in real time. And that essentially replaced the entire function. If it costs you, let's say, $300,000 a year to run the call service center, now it only costs you maybe $30,000 because you're just paying for the API cost to ChatGPT. So that is really the other aspects of AI, is replacing the entire function. So then now you have all these customer service representatives and they don't know what to do. Now let me give you a little bit more color on the programming example. And this is already happening, and I'm sure programmers, you already know. Back in March 2022, that's when there's a peak in terms of the number of programmer job posting in US. So I'll show the charts here, and you can see the peak back in March 2022 at 240. And since then, the number of job posting has dropped 75%. So if it used to have 240 listings, now there's only 60. But then you still have the same number, if not more, people wanting to go into programming, wanting to go into these lucrative positions and be a programmer. But you can see that the number of job posting has declined because the productivity of a programmer has increased, and also there's less need of a programmer because people are more efficient, more productivity. They use OpenAI to code. I use OpenAI to code. So that gives you an idea. I'm a CPA, Chartered Investment Manager, and I do some of the coding myself with the help of ChatGPT. Now, in comparison, when you're looking at accounting, which is where my background is, in 2022, the peak is 186 in terms of posting. So this is just an index, so it's not exactly the number. And now it's at around 100. So that means there's a 40% decline in the number of job postings in accounting. So if you use that as a benchmark, and obviously there's less need for accountants as well because a lot of that job can be automated, but you can see the number of programmer related job postings dropped more, almost 100% more. So it went from negative 40% to negative 75%. So that shows you how much AI has impacted the software development industry. And you'll see some news about Meta trying to cut 5% of their bottom tier engineers because they believe that mid-level engineering can be replaced by AI. And that brings me to the solution. Right now, we're on the verge of replacing a significant population in the world with AI. Basically, the labor cost in an equation is being taken out and completely replaced with capital costs, which is just the API and some nuclear plants and some NVIDIA GPUs to run AI. So then there's going to be a mass unemployment because people are going to be looking for different jobs, and that's going to drive down labor costs because there's going to be more supply for other jobs. And I think at this point, people are scrambling to think about what are the job needs in a post-AI world. And I've been racking my brain, and I don't have a really good answer yet. The only answer I have is it's a job that requires you to also use AI. So for example, an accountant with AI would definitely be better than an accountant without AI. But then the question is, can AI completely replace the accountant? And if they can, for example, like call center, then it's completely eliminated. Okay, so then we need universal basic income because you get mass unemployment. There's going to be a giant shift. And when we reach general artificial intelligence, we're not going to be ready for it. So then what is the solution to universal basic income? Now, if you rely on the government, yes, you can, but the entire government functions on everyone paying their taxes, chipping in into this pool, and then it gets redistributed to the people who need it. And obviously, we know that billionaires are not going to be paying a lot of their taxes. In fact, there are so many strategies on how they can not pay taxes. I made a video on it called How the Rich Can Avoid Paying Taxes. So then instead, if you rely on the middle class to pay taxes to help support the middle and the lower class, and the middle class are getting replaced, then there's no more tax revenue per se in terms of payroll tax, income tax. You're not going to get any of that anymore. It's just going to be corporate profits at the end of the day. And that's obviously a very extreme example. Instead, you need to invest. There's going to be a giant shift in terms of the number of people who needs to learn how to invest and use their capital to generate income. And this philosophy really stems from understanding the kind of society we're in within the Western world. We are a capitalistic society, which means most of the functions in the society is driven by the amount of capital you have, which can be demonstrated by looking at the billionaires and see the outrageous things they can do with lots and lots of money, how they can go through many lawsuits, basically using capital to hire a lawyer to delay certain judgments or basically get their way, lobby their way into certain regulation. So then when you're thinking about in an extreme version of a capitalistic society where labor is mostly automated, the only way to generate income is that you learn how to deploy the capital you have. And that brings you to investing, and that brings you to learning some sort of monthly passive income strategy. Now, if you have been following me for a while, you know what my monthly passive income strategy is, which mainly involves selling options for income. So we choose blue chip companies when they're at a discount or a good price, and then we sell options on them to generate income. And that doesn't require labor, and that mainly requires capital to earn a certain percentage per month. So the target is 2 to 3% a month. So if someone is looking for a universal basic income of, let's say, $1,000 to $2,000 a month, then what they need is to have $30,000 saved up, making 3% a month. That'll be around $1,000 a month. And if they want $2,000 a month, then they need $60,000 saved up, making 3% a month. And I think that is really the key, which requires you to learn investing to achieve universal basic income. And once that is unlocked in a capitalistic society, then it's just a matter of how much capital can you save up in order to reach your monthly income goal. So in terms of AI, this is where we're heading. If you ask people 4 years ago, they're going to predict that artificial general intelligence will come within the next 5 to 10 years. If you're asking people today, artificial intelligence is coming within the next 3 years. So you can see the timeline and the improvement level is accelerating. So that means if you're asking people next year or the year after, we're probably very close to artificial general intelligence, which means a significant percentage of these tasks can be replaced by ChatGPT. It can get automated. If you're using a computer to do anything, it can be automated. And if you're not using computer to do something, if there's a humanoid robot like the ones being produced in Tesla or produced in China, that gets connected to ChatGPT can also replace a lot of manual labor tasks. For example, construction, plumbing. These tasks, which may seem ChatGPT safe for now, once you pair that up with a humanoid robot, it becomes easily replaceable. And it makes dangerous jobs like roofing, construction, a lot safer. So if you're wondering, let's say my salary as a plumber is $80,000 a year. What is the cost of a humanoid robot? And the answer is, right now in China, it's around 16,000 to 20,000 US. So that means the labor cost or the production cost for these robots is already at a very low price, and it's only a one-time fee plus some maintenance. So you don't need to pay the 80,000 for a plumber every single year. So then instead, it's a matter of the software, basically OpenAI being smart enough to inject that insights, knowledge into the robot and then function in the real world. And it's going to come a lot sooner than what people realize, but that is the direction we're heading. So there's a very strong need for the world to take care of humanity with some sort of universal basic income program. And if the government fails to deliver, there's going to be mass unemployment, and a lot of people are not going to know what to do. And I guess that's what we're all about to find out in terms of this experiment, is whether or not the government can provide what the people need to weather through the AI replacement. So let me know what you think about OpenAI and also universal basic income below. So next up, let's go through the latest US inflation data together. So when it comes to inflation, this is the key metric that Fed is going to use to determine whether or not they'll reduce the interest rate. And if the interest rate goes down, the stock market goes up. So it's important to have an idea of what the interest rate should be. So within Investing Accelerator, I do monthly forecasts on what the inflation is. And for the latest month, it was 2.4%, which is my forecast. And the January 2025 inflation turns out to be 3%, which is higher than my forecast. So I was thinking of the reason, and it's mainly because of the recent bird flu, which I'm not sure if people in the US will get a lot of news on, but over 1 million birds are killed because of the bird flu, and that leads to an increase in egg prices and also chicken prices. And also, when it comes to Trump's new policy for deporting illegal immigrants, this also increases the deportation fear, which they work in agriculture a lot, and that leads to slower harvesting, which leads to increase in grocery prices as well. Now, some people might wonder, hey, is it because of the tariffs? But the tariffs are actually not in place yet. So here you can see there's a couple of charts. So first, core, the change is not significant. The CPI, Consumer Price Index, increased quite a bit compared to the previous couple of months. Change in goods, excluding food and energy, is pretty much flat. So it's really food and energy here. And then core services is also increasing as well. So if you go down a little bit and we read this news article together, then you can see that it was grocery prices. 2/3 is due to higher egg prices, and that is really the bird flu. And based on my understanding, the Center for Disease Control in US is being defunded in US, or at least is paused for now. So then there's really no news related to CDC, bird flu. So I don't know if people in America will hear about this. And there might not be enough controls in place to contain the bird flu. Just to give you an example, in Japan, over 1 million birds are also dead because of this bird flu, and it's in China as well. So then you can imagine with US, if there isn't the Center for Disease Control, likely the bird flu will get out of hand. And the cost of hotel and used car also climbed, possibly because of the wildfire in Los Angeles. So I think this is out of Fed's control. This is also out of Fed's control. And the grocery prices is really Trump's policy. So I think in the next couple of months, if the tariffs proposed by Trump goes into effect, this will lead to another couple of percentage points increase in terms of inflation. Because what will end up happening is that the auto parts coming from Canada and Mexico will have a 25% tariff on it. So let's say the Canadian auto parts represents around 50% of the parts used in an American car. So then that means the tariffs will be half. So it's around 10% increase for car prices. But then cars is, let's say, 10 to 20% of the inflation index, and just roughly doing some math here for you. So then you're looking at an increase of, let's say, that's a very rough calculation on how the inflation index can go up by a couple of percentage points if, let's say, cars, steel, automotive parts, oil, potash, these raw material elements are being taxed. So the Americans will be paying a higher price because of Trump's inflationary policy. And we already see that with the bird flu, which we can argue, hey, it's not really Trump's fault because it's a disease. But the lack of reporting and the part where he defunded the Center for Disease Control, that's on him. So as an investor, I guess at this point, the market is holding steady today where the inflation data is released. So we'll just need to continue to monitor to see if there's anything surprising happening.
This is a quick video review of Investing Accelerator with Eric Cito. This is the third investing course I've taken, and Investing Accelerator is a blend between the first two with features all on its own as well. I took the course at the beginning of November of 2024, and that same month I had my highest ever at that time monthly cash flow between my investments, between my two accounts. And December was a little bit of a fall off, but this January, with this month isn't even over yet, but so far this month, January of 2025, this has been by far my best month of monthly cash flow. In fact, it's enough to pay for a 2-week vacation in Mexico coming up in March. Now, my goal for until then is to make up the paycheck that I'm going to miss by being off work for a couple weeks too. And not only the value of the course itself, but there's also ongoing support in the community with Eric and weekly coaching calls. And he also gives out trades for free. Every week he gives a trade for free while encouraging you to come up with your own trade. But for somebody just starting out, you can't go wrong by copying Eric's trades. Even when they get into trouble, he tells you what to do. Therefore, I would highly recommend to my friends and colleagues that Investing Accelerator is well worth the time and money to put into it.